This is going to be about as close as I ever come to an actual rant. I try not to wade into controversial subjects in the hobby, or if I do it through my blog where I do the tarantula controversies and kind of examine both sides of the argument. However, the past couple weeks I've had a question come up repeatedly, which is should you give tarantulas water dishes? In a couple cases, it was specifically asking, or the people were specifically asking, should you give them to slings? And in a couple cases, I encouraged somebody to give them to a sling, and they said, no, I read online that you don't have to do that, that they'll drown, and a plethora of other excuses. So I explained to them, no, that's not true, and kind of went through my whole shebang that I give my slings water dishes, usually starting about ½ inch, 3/4 of an inch or so. Um, was watching some YouTube videos the other day, and there's a YouTuber, and I'm not going to mention names or anything, but I was really kind of upset to watch the YouTuber's video. I'm not even going to use the sex so nobody can figure it out. But this individual basically stated that they don't use water dishes for their slings because it takes a lot of time to refill them and because the slings can drown. Now, I saw a bunch of people in the comment section that were obviously new to the hobby that were like, oh, good, I didn't know that. I didn't know they could drown. And we're probably taking this misinformation and using it to make a decision on whether or not they include water dishes in with their slings. And that kind of bothers me. When I started Tom's Big Spiders, my blog, about 2.5 years ago, I think it was about 2.5 years ago, one of the issues was I found there was a lot of misinformation online. A lot of people use anecdotal evidence as basically proof or scientific proof that things are how they should work with tarantulas and whatnot, which some cases that's great, some cases it's not. I also saw a lot of people that would basically fashion themselves experts in the hobby. Now, before I go any further, I say on my blog, I do not consider myself an expert. I think I have some good experience. I keep a lot of different species. I do a lot of experimentation with things, and I like to pass along the stuff that works. I think it's part of being a teacher. You like sharing it. So I don't, when people come to me and go, oh, you're an expert. No, I'm not. I may have a little more experience with these things, but I don't know if I'll ever feel like I'm in the expert category. I do have a hard time with people stating opinions as if they're facts. So this particular video and this particular YouTuber kind of irritated me a little bit, only because here's why I'm getting these emails from people asking about the water dishes. So a couple things to make very, very clear. Number one, slings will not drown in the water dishes. I know there's this big urban legend out there that they flip over and they drown. They do not. Spiders haven't survived millions of years by being stupid enough to fall in water dishes and drown. I have raised dozens of slings, upwards of probably about 75 to 100 now. I give water dishes to about ½ inch to 3/4 of an inch. Guess how many I've lost to drowning? 0. And again, it's one of those things that you hear people state and it drives me nuts. And then my favorite is when they say something along the lines of, well, I'm not going to take the chance with mine. Okay, well, don't do that, but you run more of a chance of your tarantula becoming desiccated because there isn't enough moisture in there. So again, I know people, the water dish thing rages on, the battle over the water dishes rages on. A lot of keepers don't use water dishes and they do it successfully. That's great. I'm not trying to change their minds. What I'm trying to do is give my opinion on the matter as far as why you can use water dishes at that size and why it can be important. Number two, I also heard people complaining that when you use smaller water dishes, and I'm going to use this as an example, I use the water bottle caps. My kids at school actually saved these for them, so I have dozens, saved them for me, and I have dozens of them. Oops, there's another one, big fat hands. I love these for slings. You drop them in. I got one right here with it. Oop. There's my little, let me try on the light here, one of my G pulchripes, pulchripes, sorry Casey. And there's the water dish. Do I have to fill it every once in a while? Yes, that's one of the things with water dishes. You have to fill them. They don't magically fill themselves. I've actually heard people complain, well, it's too time consuming. My opinion on this, and I don't want to sound like a jerk because I'm usually very careful at just not, sticking my nose in people's business, but if you're in a hobby where you're supposed to be taking care of animals, good husbandry takes time. It takes time. I have dogs. It takes time to feed the dogs twice a day, to give them water, to give them a walk. It's part of the fun of the hobby. It's part of the responsibility of owning a pet. So when I hear somebody go, well, it takes a long time to go through and fill all those water dishes, just easier not to. It's kind of not a great excuse as far as I'm concerned. We should be taking care of these animals the best for our ability. Now, if you have a system that you don't need to use water dishes with your slings, and you found that you don't need them, okay, that's fine. I completely understand, but I hate to hear the excuse that it just takes too much time to keep them full. And then I'd like to point out that water dish there, I filled 3 days ago. I refilled it again today. It still had water in it. If your water dish is evaporating overnight, you probably really need some extra moisture for your slings, because that means your air is very dry and stuff's evaporating very quickly. So something to, think about. I also heard people say that they spray them down to keep humidity up. The spraying, just to let you know, I do spray occasionally. I found my arboreals will sometimes drink from the sides of the enclosures. I have a special spray bottle that doesn't blow air all over the place, because if you've ever noticed, when you blow on tarantulas, they don't particularly like it. So I find that spraying is great for adding a little moisture, for maybe spray a web down or spray the side of the enclosure. It doesn't raise the humidity for that long. A water dish on a bigger tarantula, one of these guys here, and I have several water dishes laid out, will keep the humidity up and give it a place to drink much longer than spraying. I dare anybody to do this little experiment. Take your enclosure, spray the side down, and see how many hours it takes for it to completely evaporate. It doesn't stay there long. So for those who say, oh, I just spray them down, spraying's good, does give them a source of moisture, but having a water dish is an extra precaution, so that if you're not there to spray, or you forget, or your house happens to get dry overnight because the furnace kicks on, they have a source of water. I have seen mine drink many, many times, from slings to juveniles to my old G. porteri, who is known to be, a species, G. porteri, that is kept very arid and doesn't need moisture. I've caught that tarantula drinking more than any other. So I do personally like to keep water dishes with my tarantulas. I keep them full for the moisture-loving species. If the substrate dries out a little bit, but you have a large water dish in there, that helps a great deal. It helps keep the humidity up in the enclosure. Some of the things I use, again, for slings, these little bottle caps you get off the water, wash them out good. For juveniles, the milk caps work great. Again, you have to clean them out and film. They're kind of disposable. I use these because these I will just take out and pluck if they get dirty. I bought these souffle cups that I use for some of my young adults. These work great because they're very, very cheap. I think it was like $8 for 100 or something. I have a ton of them, and if they get soiled, I just take them out, drop them in the recycle bin. I also have used, people have seen how I do my arboreal enclosures, and I can also do it with webbing species. For those that complain that they kind of web over the water dish, what I'll do is drop one in and stick another one inside of it, so that when they start webbing up, you can pluck the top one and drop another one in, so they don't get webbed all over. But again, these work great. And then these I love. I buy these at Petco. They cost less than $1 when you have one of their sales with free shipping. I generally buy them like by the dozens of $12. You get over 12 of them. They work great, and they're nice and easy to clean. Again, another Petco dish. There we go. Another Petco dish. And I've seen these I use for some of the ones if people are afraid that things are going to drown. The one thing I like about these, if crickets get in them, they can get out. Again, you might have to refill them a little more often than normal, but not a big deal. One of the other things I've had people tell me, and this one drives me nuts as well. And again, I feel like this is kind of a rant. I'm kind of being negative, but it is information. I think people can take it or leave it. If you don't want to keep water dishes, then I would tell you to talk to some of the keepers that keep their tarantulas without water dishes. Find out how they do them, because I'm sure they've got a way of delivering moisture. I personally find it easier to keep the dishes. One of the other excuses I've heard, which drives me absolutely nuts, is when they say that there are no water dishes in the wild. Tarantulas don't have water dishes in the wild. That's total bull. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. They're also not living in little plastic aquariums in the wild and have somebody dropping in food to them all the time and taking care of them. It goes without saying that they don't have water dishes in the wild. What they do have, a lot of these tarantulas, is a lot of rainfall. They have moisture collecting on leaves. They have moisture collecting on their webbing. The webbing's waterproof and can hold moisture very, very well. They have streams. They have ponds, little puddles. They have many places to get water. So when you keep them in your home, you take away that ability for them to go out and find water. And by that same logic, dogs, I have 3 dogs, or 4 dogs. Again, they don't have water dishes in the wild. If they were out and about and were wild dogs, they'd be drinking out of puddles and rivers and streams. However, because they're in my home, it's a different situation. You give them water dishes. So again, I don't want this to turn into I'm bashing people that don't use water dishes. There are a lot of experienced hobbyists out there that know their stuff, that have a system, that don't find the need to keep water dishes. And if you have a system, whether it be wetting down the webbing, spraying, whatever it may be, that's fine. What I have taken umbrage with is individuals that go out there and tell people they can't keep, that it's too time consuming to keep water dishes, that it's not needed, that that shouldn't be a deciding factor. Oh, it's going to take me a little extra time to take care of my pets. Or the ones that say, their slings will drown. That's horse pocky. It's not true. It's please spread the word. If you see somebody put that up there and say, "Oh, well, I'm not taking a chance," inform them you're not taking a chance. The only thing you're going to be doing is giving your tarantula another place to find moisture in case you're not able to keep up with keeping the substrate moist or spraying down the sides of the enclosure. So again, my rant is done. I know this is kind of long. I apologize for anybody that listened to it, but I do personally, my belief is that it's better to be cautious and provide them with something to drink from. Here's all the different types of water dishes I use, including some larger ones. I encourage it, but if you speak to somebody that doesn't use them and you have a system, feel free to go use it. But please don't make up bogus wives' tales and urban legends about slings and tarantulas falling into water dishes and dying, because it's not true, and it just kind of makes you sound ill-informed and like you don't know what you're talking about. So again, my rant's done. Back to all happy stuff later on.